This is the town moor, a massive area of common land just to the north of Newcastle city centre. It's usually inhabited by joggers, dog walkers and cattle. But every year it's home to a special event when in June showmen from all over Britain and beyond arrive to take part in what has become the biggest travelling fun fair in Europe.
He's a showman, on the road, man. Another time, another fair, every place, everywhere. He's a showman. He's a showman. Caravan man. Like his father and before, in his blood forevermore. He's a showman. Through all kinds of weather, the road goes on forever. Summer, sun, thunder and rain. The story's not the stopping, it's the story of the Hopkins. It's just that time of year again. Showman, traveling man. Big wheels turn around, the lights, the sights, the sound of the showman.
The fair dates back over 120 years to 1882, when it was originally introduced as a temperance festival to replace horse racing. To this day, the fair is still an alcohol-free zone. The fair became known as the Hoppings in the 1950s, the word Hoppings being derived from the word hops, which was the name for local dancers in villages in the northeast in the 18th century.
I remember Saturday night at the Newcastle Fair.
The huge fair is now organised by the northern section of the Showmen's Guild of Great Britain, in partnership with the Freemen of Newcastle and the City Council. Within a couple of hours, the once empty field begins to resemble a town within a town, constructed to house a multi-million-pound treasure trove of fairground attractions. Let's go back in time, over 120 years, and hear the story of the Hoppings. And to set the scene is Mr. Colin Noble, one of the main organisers of the event.
Well, as near as we can tell you, because it wasn't there at the time, but we're informed it was 1882, which goes back a long time. They built iron men and wooden ships then. And the ride was big and driven by steam. The men were very, very hard working because there wasn't many cranes in those days. It was all manual labour, and it took some moving.
Steam had been harnessed to power fairground equipment only 12 years before the first Temperance Fair, and this new source of power resulted in the development of large rides like the galloping horses and switchbacks. These enormous rides were both powered and transported by the equally mammoth traction engines. In the very early years of the Town Moor Fair, pioneering showman families included the Farrers, the Lings, the Powells, and especially the Murphy family, whose contribution to the development of the Hoppings could never be understated. By 1900, when the rides had become electrically driven, the combined imaginations of artists, carpenters and engineers ran wild. The themes of the switchback rides were constantly being modified. It became a competition to see who could be the most elaborate with their styles, ranging from simple boats, motor cars and Venetian gondolas to peacocks, dragons and diving dolphins. The punters had even more fun for their farthings. One of the many astonishing attractions which visited the Hoppings at the beginning of the 20th century was Murphy's Bioscope, a forerunner of the cinema, long before Tom Mix and Laurel and Hardy became household names. The Town Moor Fair was cancelled in 1914, as many of the showmen had taken their traction engines to help with the war effort. It was replaced by a smaller fair in nearby Jesmond Vale during World War I. In 1924, the showmen returned to the Town Moor with the biggest ever fair to visit Newcastle.
Never saw the sight of the magical sounds in the air. Never seen the old Town Moor dressed up the way that it was that night. But most of all, the magic for me was that Jenny was there.
A very unusual ride appeared at the Town Moor in the early 20th century. The Razzle Dazzle was a huge rotating, tilting drum. A very similar version of this ride is still on show at the Town Moor Fair of today with a new name, the Wild Thing. While the switchbacks and carousels continued to churn the customers' stomachs at the Town Moor throughout the 1920s, the sideshows and attractions were many and varied. For instance, the daredevils who risked life and limb diving from a huge tower into what appeared to be a bucket of water. The early 1930s saw a new development in thriller rides visiting the Town Moor. Rides like the Caterpillar, one of the first high-speed rides where courting couples stole a very quick kiss as the canvas cover came over them. Thomas Dixon, a veteran fairground enthusiast, remembers the years at the Town Moor Fair leading up to World War II.
My earliest memories of the Funfair on the Town Moor here go back to about 1934-35. When I was brought to the fair by my father and mother. Money was tight in those days. You were lucky to get a ride or two, but on different things. And one of the rides that went on was the Dodgem cars. One of the finest rides that I ever went on was the Moon Rocket ride. Also had what I class as one of the best Ben-Hur rides in the country. The lovely Ben-Hur, when it was built up, there was the great big chariot race on the front of the great big massive rounding boards and that. And the whole chariot race, and what a ride that was to go on. And what a wonderful sight that was.
In the 1930s, advances in engineering and materials resulted in the introduction of faster rides with a shorter assembly time. Noah's Ark rides and variations like the Speedway quickly replaced the more cumbersome switchbacks, which took too long to build and dismantle. A variation on the Ark called the Walser made its debut at the Hoppings as early as 1934, but surprisingly did not become popular until well after World War II. The ever-faithful traction engines began to be replaced with heavy-duty motor vehicles in the late 1930s.
The earliest my memories of the Hoppings were moon rockets and cakewalks. I remember American brought a sideshow. It'd be 100-foot front, 500-600 feet back, and was racing cars in there and turning cars over. Peggy the Eye Diver, the girl on the eye wire, the Frenchman on the swinging pole. There's been lots of great shows here, lots of great shows and lots of things for the public in the past, but they didn't have to pay. It was an attraction. They come down. The syndicate paid for it. We don't see it on that much. that kind of stuff no more. I don't know why. I don't know if these people don't exist. I think Peggy the High Diver's still going.
The beginning of the war, there was a Funfair Stage and Exhibition Park for 7 weeks. The advert in the press said, the first wartime funfair of the north of England. Hoodless had the moon rocket, Frank McConville had the Noah's Ark, and John Powell had a great big massive Dodge and car truck.
Well, the actual Hoppings Fair as we know it now was suspended during the war. But what they did have had a certain amount of equipment, and they called it holidays at home, to help keep the morale of the public up during the bombing and so on through the war. And the fair was actually, I think it was in the Bull Park, wasn't it?
Part of it was in the first 1941, 42, and I think 43 was in the exhibition park, where you say the Bull Park. And then in 1944, we came back onto the lower end of the moor, which was quite a considerable size fair at the time. And then the only interruption from there on that was ever thought about was when we had the wet rain that year.
Don't let it rain. Don't let it rain today, or any other day. Storm clouds gather, ruin my dream. Monochrome mud on the silver screen. Don't let it rain. Don't let it rain today, or any other day. Today or any other
And it was a bit dodgy, but the sun shone on us. God's not bad if you treat it right.
I was born on the moor along this footpath here. That's the way the town moor used to run in those days. It didn't come from the bottom and go straight up. It went across the town moor, with all the equipment stood either side of the road. It used to be across the moor then. That was in the good old days. In 42 and 43, they allowed us back onto the town moor for an 8-week stint. And they requested it, the government, for the local authorities all over the country to work hand in hand with the Showman's Guild at that time to provide stay-at-home holidays all over the country. Glasgow, the west of England, London area, the Yorkshire. And so the showmen obviously worked with the government on this enterprise to the benefit of all, I would say. And the town moor then was only a fractional of what it is now, of course, with the restrictions on travelling and the restrictions on many things during the war years.
When the war was on, we actually got hold of a flying bomb and put that on exhibition, went tenting with it around the marketplaces by ourselves. We've done a few different things.
Following the end of the Second World War, the organisers of the Hoppings planned a triumphant return to Newcastle in 1946. However, this was not to be. Following a dispute with the city council, the showmen set up a rival fair on the other side of the river in Gateshead. The fair here, organised by the council alone, was a total flop, attracting 30,000 visitors rather than the usual 1.5 million.
As far as the Showman's Guild was concerned, was that with a disagreement with the city over the rent, and what the city decided to do was to let it to people who weren't members of the Showman's Guild, as we all, in this fair, we're all members of the Showman's Guild. And unfortunately, they just couldn't put the show on, the spectacular show that it is today. So that was only on for 1 year, and then it reverted back to the members of the Showman's Guild.
just after the war, about 1947 was the farthest I can remember back, but we come here earlier than that. My grandfather, years before that, used to be one of the Northern Syndicate. And over the years, the Murphy family has been associated with the town moor for, since, I would reckon, since it first began. And it's John Murphy now who's on the Northern Syndicate with Mr. Colin Noble. They actually run the fair as it is today. There was like steam yachts, the jumping horses, there was dive bombers, like not the dive bombers like we see today, but more or less on the same lines. There was Noah's Arks, which is the speedway, the early forerunner of the Razzle Dazzle, and that type of thing.
The Walsall arrived just pre-war, 1939, but in 1945, that was the introduction of the waltzers. And of course, they've stayed the distance very well. I mean, they're still a popular ride today. The Waltz and the Dodgems are what we call a bread and butter ride. You'll always get a living with them, but you'll never make a great fortune.
Quilly Toogood remembers his early days with his father at the Hoppings.
I was still going to school. That's when my dad had the Swiss. As I say, not years ago, that. I'm 67. But I mean, it was on before that, but it stopped while the war was on. You know, then just after the war finished, following year it was back on again.
This is the swish or the swirl, popular at the town moor between the 1940s and the 1990s. Towards the end of the 1940s, an exciting new show became established at the Hoppings, next to the infamous boxing booth. Fearless performers sped around a circular wall on motorcycles, and even racing cars on the wall of death.
I remember old Matty Taylor with his double dive bomber used to be at the bottom of the moor here. And I mean, that was a wonderful ride, that. And then Cullen Brothers Silver Rodeo.
By the dawn of the 1950s, Newcastle's town moor fair was universally known as the Hoppings. Around the same period, one of only two existing examples of the revolutionary new ride, the Rotor, visited the Hoppings. Riders stood inside a spinning drum. The floor dropped away and they stuck to the wall like flies. It is still the only pay-to-view fairground ride in the world. I wonder why. With its very non-cowboy name, Shufflebottom's Wild West Show had been visiting the Hoppings since the 1890s and was still all the rage in the 1950s. In the late 1950s, visitors to the Hoppings were the first generation to experience the music that has become forever associated with fairgrounds and good times. Rock and roll.
Really rocking at the Hoppings, having a ball. We're really rocking at the Hoppings, let's have a ball. Yeah, we're jumping and jiving to the good old days of rock and roll. Rolling on the wall, so speeding to the sound, spinning on a speedway, feet don't touch the ground. Really rocking at the Hoppings, having a ball. Jamming,
had the freak show, the sheep with 5 legs and 6 feet. The kitten with 6 paws. The little horse, so small, so tiny, he was smaller than a dog. The bull with 5 legs, 6 feet and 2 tails. Babyface, the cow with the bulldog's head. The little monkey, there was nothing wrong with him, he was just to amuse the kids. There was 15 live animals in the one show for threepence, all alive. Nothing stuffed, nothing in glass cases. We can do anything, and that's how I brought my kids up and how I brought myself up. We can build anything. Like the funhouse behind you, I built it, and I'm proud of it.
Did you paint it as well?
No, I'm not very good at the painting job. Only with a spray gun, a big spray gun. I've enjoyed the funhouse, I've had haunted houses, I've had several ghost trains, I've had girl shows, I've had the illusion, the half-bodied girl, Dracula's daughter. I had an octopus in a tank once, 7 feet across. I've had lots of different things, but I think the funhouse is my favourite. I can build it up, I can pull it down, I can maintain it, and I can mind it. I don't need anybody. I don't need any men to go and find the men before I open. The girl shows, where's the girls? They want to walk up the street, there's people on the ground, we're ready for opening. Where's these girls? So Loughborough Fair, the 2 boys from the Walser run away and took the 2 girls of mine with them. The man from the Walser said, your girls have stolen my men. Yeah, I said, very good. And I couldn't get any more girls, so I didn't open Saturday at all. Loughborough Fair, a major fair, and I didn't open. So when I turned in that winter, I said, we're going to make something, Eileen, that me and you can build up, mind, and we don't need nobody. And that's how the funhouse was born. Actually, it was Frankenstein's castle what was born then. I used to frighten people to death. This funhouse has always been a funhouse, but it's been Spanish style, it's been Chinese style, and now we're in with the jungle.
This attraction behind me, the bingo, you can win thousands of prizes like you can all over the fairground. I wonder what you would have won in times gone past. A mango? Or stoop?
There used to be a lot of like chalk figures on bingo stalls and that, what we used to call like cherry ladies and all that. You sometimes see them in auction today with a girl holding a cherry up above her head with the old-fashioned dress and everything on, you know. That sort of thing, and T-shirts was always, and pets of pans was always things on bingo stalls, and dart stalls was always like coconuts, but not straight after the war because naturally we couldn't get them until they started fetching them in. Coconuts started arriving on the fairgrounds around about 48 to 1950, somewhere around that area, and they still go strong today. Baskets of fruit and chickens, like after like 48, 50 there used to be a bingo stall used to be called Chicken Joe's, and he gave nothing else but chickens out. That was his complete stock, was chickens.
We couldn't get the crockery, we couldn't get the soft toys, nothing like that. We couldn't get the chocolates, all those things. The typical things would be if we found somewhere we still had the salt cellars and the brushes and the chalk figures and things like that.
Joe Lane from Doncaster, he used to have a man called Joe Barrick who had Chicken Joe. Now you got a parcel of groceries, a chicken on top of the parcel, and any other prize on the stall for 6pence. And that was good value. Harry had a housey stall. He used to get exceptionally good prices off Harry. I've still got a prize at home that we won a ferry, which is a chrome companion set, and it's still in good order. Right.
This is Swag Alley, an official street inside the Hoppins Fair. It's like a bazaar which provides everything the showmen need, from thousands of Hit records meant everything at the Hoppings, especially in the 60s. And this ride, Shaw's Moon Rockets, was extremely popular because it seemed to get the new records before anyone else. These moon rockets were an updated version of the old design, modified by local showman John Hoadley, with swing-out cars replacing the fixed ones. They were a highlight at the Hoppings until 1984, but have not visited Newcastle since. However, they have now been fully refurbished and can be found working in the summer months in Rawcliffe near Doncaster. Maybe one day they'll revisit the Hoppings. When the building of the new urban motorway threatened to isolate the town more from Newcastle city centre, people in their thousands still found a way of getting to the Hoppings.
The ones that stick in my mind most, because I was a 70s child, not a 60s child, is Fred Killeen's Silver Rodeo at the bottom, and Jobson's Dodgems, and Two Goods Walser, and Murphy's Walser at the very bottom position, what Curtis Eddy's standing on now. Wonderful days. And one of my favourite rides of the 70s was Brett's Ghost Train. Because when we were kids, it was really, because it was all had varnish sort of tint on it, and it was like, my God, we used to run away from it when we were kids. But it was a wonderful feel in the town we were in the 70s.
flying saucers spinning in the lights. In that old Dodgem car, we did.
The Octopus was given a run for its money by the dreaded Skyliner, or American Eggs as they were known at the Hoppings.
Gee, oh, baby, hold on tight. Hold on, gee, oh, baby, everything gonna be alright. I remember the tunnel of love.
The Hoppings were literally packed solid with sideshows, and if you never got the chance to see the Wolfman, for instance, then here you go.
Gee, oh, baby, hold on tight. Hold on, gee, oh, baby, everything gonna be alright.
The summers of 76 and 77 were the hottest on record.
Fairground attraction, switchback action, satisfaction guaranteed. Razzle dazzle on the swish and the swirl. If you be my girl. Tonight's the night. It's gonna be the ride of your life. Electric lights shine so bright, high on the heat of the night. Twisting moon dance under the stars in cosmic cars. Tonight's the night. It's gonna be the ride of your life. Tonight's the night. It's gonna be the ride of your life. Tonight's fire. The night. It's gonna be the ride of your life. What's the ride? What's the ride? The night. It's gonna be the ride of your life. Tonight's fire. The night.
At night, the glow created by over 500,000 light bulbs from the rides lit up the sky. At the edge of the Hoppings Fair can be found the numerous Romany fortune tellers who have visited the fair since it began. They are as much a part of the Hoppings as the Walser, Dodgems, Hoopla and Candy Floss. Names such as Lee and Petulengro have become legendary as generations have revisited them over the years. This is probably because the fortune tellers rarely give anyone bad news. Today we are paying a visit to Sarah, the palm reader, who has given advice to many people, including the famous.
Well, constantly on the phone to me. Constantly on the phone. Mainly wondering what they're doing, if they're doing on the right or the wrong thing, where their occupation is concerned, and probably little parts of their own life. They just want to be put right. And Offhand, I can think of 6 different individual people that phoned me every week, just to find out if things are right for them. I was at Newcastle, and this is before she became the Prime Minister, and she came into the caravan for a reading. I didn't realise who she was at the time, because faces means nothing to me, and gave her the reading, blah blah blah, and she was quite happy with it, and all her friends outside when she went out, how was things, but a reading is a private and confidential thing, keep to yourself. 12 months later, that's when she became the Prime Minister, and she sent a letter. I've still got the letters, obviously, in the box somewhere, thanking me for helping her to get on the... I know there's a lot of people wouldn't be thanking me. I think a lot of people might be stringing me up if they ever know. A lot of young people, I do get a lot of young people, and over a lot of different fairs that I go to, that want to do things and wondering if they're doing the right way, where they haven't got the backing of the parents. So they need some advice from an older person just to put them on the right track. And that's where I get the satisfaction, because maybe 12 months, 18 months later, they come down to see me again, and they'll say, I've done it, I've done this, I've done that, or whatever they were doing, and I'm happy, and thank you very much for putting me on that track.
The 80s saw a massive advance in technology which completely transformed the skyline of the Hoppings, with new rides catapulting people in every conceivable direction. Rides like the Quasar challenged older rides like the Astronaut. Even the Walser went high-tech, with metal platforms and illuminated cars, as featured on Cordona's Hellraiser, which surprisingly no longer visits the Hoppings. The old Twist did a somersault as the King loops. The Twist also soon took to the air as the Orbiter. The original Mont Blanc transformed into the Ghostbuster, Alpine Express and Rhythm Master. The looping star defied gravity. And the zipper just kept on zipping. Rides like the Enterprise came and went faster than a tin of beans on a supermarket shelf. This sideshow, and the name Ron Taylor, is a legend at the Hoppings. His great-grandfather was a bare-knuckle fighter, and his grandmother used to fight with gloves on. Visitors to his boxing and wrestling booth have seen locals being thumped left, right and centre over the years. Turner's waltzer has the longest history of any waltzer still at the Hoppings, dating back to 1939 when it was brand new Noah's Ark owned by Will Starr. It was bought by Uncle Too Good in 1949.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around the clock.
He converted it into a waltzer in 1955, sporting a new front featuring Bill Healy and his Comets.
Yes, because Bill Healy was like Topsy in around then. And Nacho was painted on the face front, Bill Healy and his Comets. A fella from Benmore painted him called Jackie Paget, one of the finest painters you've ever known.
Uncle updated the front in the early 70s, featuring more traditional scroll designs. Ownership passed to Keith Turner in the late 70s, who had the front repainted in its now familiar darker colours, and the ride became known as the Imperial Waltzer and later as Rolling Thunder.
This ride, I'm led to believe, started its life in 1939 by Lakins. Too Goods bought it in 1944, thereabouts, 49 I think. They bought it at the Speedway. Then they travelled with the Speedway and they converted in about 1955 into the waltzer what you see today. But when you say the waltzer starting its life in 1939, there's nothing there left which started its life of 1939. In them days it was made by Lakins, which now is a Maxwell Centre, Maxwell rounding boards. So basically it's changed over and it's basically a Maxwell machine because it went into Maxwell's and it was all renovated in, I think it was 1962, thereabouts. It was all renovated, new rounding boards on the top. One of the things about it, which people don't understand, when we took it over in 1979, all the contracts were signed on the Wednesday, Thursday that we took it over and we paid for it, but we didn't take it over until the Saturday. The reason being, we don't buy anything new on a Friday and earn money. We were superstitious. So everything was signed, they had the Friday nights takens, then we come out and we took over on the Saturday. But the ride itself, it's become, as I said once before, it's part of me. And it'll going to be part of the lads, and what else do you want to know?
The 1990s saw the theme of Rolling Thunder extended to include striking new designs on the waltzer cars. One man who has witnessed most of the changes to the ride is Ginger Johnny, who has travelled with it for more than 40 years.
For recognition of 40 years on the fairgrounds, with Too Goods and with Keith over the last 40 years. And thanks very much for being nice to all of us, and this as well, John. Get rid of the fire, that's it. Congratulations, John.
He remembers right back to the time when he used to travel with Uncle Too Good.
You want to say something?
More, it's like a second dad to me, him. Really good man. He teaches you how to do things and all that. And he did spend a lot of time with me, more or less, but I took interest in it. I did miss him. He showed us everything what I know about this now. When he sold the machine, he sold me with it. It's changed out a lot since Keith bought it, in other words. He spent a hell of a lot of money on it, in other words. He's upgraded it. He spent a lot of money in that and put new lights and everything on. Now it's got a different atmosphere. It'll still be popular. Still be popular, and it's faster now, faster than what it used to be. But it's getting over faster now, as far as I'm concerned. That must be me getting a bit too old, like.
Here we are, bang up to date as the 2004 Hoppings Fair is being assembled, where the rides of the 21st century rub shoulders with the traditional roundabouts of the 1800s. showman's views on technology versus tradition are, as you might expect, varied. Firstly, James Mellors Jr., a pioneer of the new spectacular rides at the Hoppins, talks about the past and the future.
My family's been coming here now for about 28 years, 30 years. And the first ride my father came with actually stood on this very same position where we are now. He came with a skydiving ride. We called it the paratrooper. Some people called it the umbrellas. And that just lifted up in the air and came back down. Times change. You go to Alton Towers, you have all these big roller coasters, big dippers, you have multiplex cinemas. You know, everything is going forward, so we have to go forward with the business. If you stay here now with the old umbrellas ride, people wouldn't really look at it no more. You've got to move with the times, and that's what our business has done. Now all of a sudden, the past 5 years, I think our business has really boomed. You see the big roller coasters, we have the Big Ben Tower, we have booster rides. Just about anything you can see in a theme park, you can now see it on the road travelling. There's only so many large fairs in this country, so we really attend most of those large fairs. You still have to do your small fairs, your bread and butter as we call it. I don't know if you've heard it before, yes. But if you go to your smaller fairs, you get your bread and butter on your table. So you still have to do those fairs, and then you look forward to the big fairs like the Hoppins to give us a bit of a boost. So I mean, we do the Nottingham Goose Fair, Hull Fair. We try and attend them all. It's going to get more complex, but it is getting a harder business. The expenses side of it, everything is getting so expensive now. Unfortunately, you see a lot of showmen that have been in the business for years are having to drop out. They just can't afford to keep doing it. Luckily for us, we're in a good position where we have the big rides now, and we are getting a lot of riders and things. But I think it is getting hard for a lot of people. The expenses and things are really starting to kill us now.
It'll transform. It'll probably finish up with more lights, but the principle of the ride will still be there, because a waltzer's a waltzer at the end of the day, and people have their own memories. We different places we go, we see the people coming back year after year, and then they bring the kids on and they remember riding on it. That's what fairgrounds are about, magic, isn't it? The magic coming into their area for a certain period, and if they don't come on them particular days, we've gone. You know, we have an opening and closing time, but they can't come back next week. The atmosphere is here now at Newcastle. Dodgems is universal. Dodgems and ghost train worldwide. Waltzers, we tried Singapore and they're not universal. But in this country, a waltzer's a waltzer, and it seems to be the main part of a fairground. People enjoy it. I think what it is as well, a family can get on there, they can jump on there with your 2 little ones or 3 little ones and sit in the car. You know that you're safe, you're going to have a ride in a waltzer, you're going to stop, you're going to get off. This technology going up in the air and flying about, you can't take your little one on and keep hold of them, can you? So maybe that's where the waltzer will always win, and be a bit of a family traditional ride, you know.
Because of the nostalgic timelessness of them. I mean, I think the stalls, even though you've got your computer games and you've got everything that's race and technology, there's still that thing. People still want to throw, they still want to shoot, they still want to do the old-time games, and the waltzer's timeless.
But of course, it's the general public who decide what the showmen keep and what they get rid of. Because no matter how pretty a ride looks, if the public don't want it, it's just not worth keeping.
Likes of the Hoppins for big fairs, there is a good future, because the likes of Newcastle and Hull Fair and Nottingham, you get people coming out because it's tradition. Even like the Newcastle people, if it rains at the Hoppins, you still get them coming out with the Wellingtons on and plunging through the clarks or whatever. It's like a way of life to the people around Newcastle. The Hoppins, it's one of the fairs where they come out to. Smaller fairs, I'm not so sure about. The old style of going on the village green and opening with a small fair is gradually fading away. It has to be a large type fair to fetch people out more or less now. You can't, like I've just said, you can't go to a village green and put 2 or 3 stalls up, and like we used to be able to, and open for maybe the weekend. That will gradually phase out, and there will be, not as large as this one, but there will be large fairs travelling, and they'll be the focal point of the area. The modern rides today, the high-speed rides, cater for all the young ones, but you've still got to have something for the families. The family has got to be catered for, because without the families, the fair couldn't survive. The smaller rides, like I operate myself, without the women and children coming up, it would be unsatisfactory. It wouldn't be feasible to try and just cater to teenagers, which is the same with some of the big rides. They've got to cater for the older type people. They can't just keep going for the young all the time. So you usually get a good selection of different types of equipment, no matter which fairground you go on.
This is not like it was before. This is not a fun fair as such now. This is a travelling theme park. And you yourself can see there's not one bad piece of equipment on this ground. I mean, I defy anybody to pick fault with any of this equipment on here, even down to the transport. You know, that's just the way things have evolved over the years and everything's improved.
They'll always be there. That's tradition. It's not only tradition, it's what people remember about fairgrounds. You say carousel, everyone knows it. Every country knows what a carousel is. And a carousel is the galloping horses. And that's the roundabouts of the day, of the days gone by, I should say. But it's still as popular today as it was then. But look at the scenery on those galloping horses. Look at the paintwork, look at the carved work. See the lighting on them now. They always had good lighting on them, but the lighting on them is tremendous today. It's all artistic work, and people still appreciate that kind of work. Even the young people appreciate it.
And the new technology can be used to cleverly preserve the more traditional designs.
This ride is only actually about 14 years old, because it's an exact copy of the original what my father-in-law owns.
The history of the Hoppings at the Town Moor spans 3 different centuries, 2 world wars, man landing on the moon and the birth of computer technology. But there's still one ingredient which is essential for a successful Hoppings, which is completely out of our control: the weather.
A bit of good weather, a bit of good sunshine, and a good turnout, and hopefully we go back off with a few quid.
That we have a safe Hoppings, as far as the public are concerned. I'm sure we will. That we have good weather for the benefit of all concerned, and that everyone, the local people, because I'm a Geordie myself, I hope they all enjoy themselves and have a wonderful time.
Dry weather, that's the main thing.
The people will come if it's fair. That's one thing I will say about Newcastle. I'm from Newcastle myself, and if it's fair weather, they always come.
They're expecting over 1 million people here, and I mean, obviously a lot depends on the weather, but they deserve it, you know. They work hard. I mean, they come here, it's a big get-together for all the showmen, to meet old friends. It's tremendous.
It's, you see all your friends here. Somebody gets married here. Before now, people's died here. Because there's a lot of us here. And it's a big get-together. Like tonight, we'll have the barbecue. Everybody will be there singing and dancing and having a drink. You're not really going down there for anything to eat. We've got plenty to eat. We've got plenty to drink in our own trailers. But it's just a get-together.
Saying that you can't always knock the coconuts off on every stall.
You can knock them off here, it's just got it in the right place. They're not glued on.
As a kid, I think everybody's dad gave them a budget for the hoppings. You can spend this much and this much only. The decisions had to be made. 3 hooker ducks or the waltzer. 3 hooker ducks or the waltzer. So after 2 toffee apples, a candy floss, a bacon sandwich, a beef burger and some hot dogs, decision was made. The waltzer. No sooner are the hoppings here than they're gone. In the blink of an eye, the field is almost empty. The massive hoppings fair splits up into small town and village fairs for the rest of the year. So if they pull into a place near you, no matter how small the fair, give it a visit and keep the travelling showmen and their unique tradition as part of our heritage.
He's a showman on the road, man, like his father before, in his blood forevermore. He's a showman.
It's a life you don't get anywhere else. We're all for each other.
These scenes are far too sad to end such a happy tale. So, let's go back to the final night of the hoppings and one last ride on the waltzer. Hold tight and it'll be all right.
Hold on to your baby. Hold on tight. Hold on to your baby. Everything gonna be alright. I remember the warm summer nights, a flying saucer spinning in the lights. In that old Dodgem car, we didn't drive too far, but now I'm riding with my darling on a shooting star. Hold on to your baby. Hold on tight. Hold on to your baby. Everything gonna be alright. I remember the tunnel of love, a Ferris wheel turning high up above. How you were petrified